Chapter 1 gives you some ideas for essential design elements used in many presentations. Myself and Becca will go through these items in just a moment.
A quick clarification before we start. Most of you will be familiar with the basic PowerPoint commands needed to create these elements. As such, this chapter focuses mainly on design, while basic and more advanced PowerPoint commands are illustrated in Chapter 7.
Headings. The first slide illustrates 4 common types of headings. 1. White font on dark background. This is seen frequently but can be overbearing if overused. 2. Bolded colored font underlined by thick colored line. This looks a bit cleaner but provides less emphasis. 3. Black font on light background. This also looks less overbearing and can be used for subheadings or emphasis of specific items. 4. All caps, which can be bolded, colored, or italicized, and also serve as subheading. Tables. This slide illustrates the usefulness of tables. To mention some examples, tables can be used to summarize data, make comparisons, and categorize information. They also give structure to a layout and enhance formatting. Tables can be designed with 1 or more row headings, as well as column headings, which can be highlighted through light coloring. Generally, you'd want to add some cell margins to the right, left, top, and bottom.
Categorization. Categorizing information allows an audience to absorb information more quickly. In addition, it also helps with creating an effective slide layout, so it is usually the first step.
Flowcharts. Boxes and arrows in particular help immediately demonstrate relationships and also lend a slide a more dynamic feel. However, the amount of complexity that can be expressed in one diagram is fairly limited, so it's best to keep each diagram at a high level and spread more complex information across multiple diagrams. You can see a couple of examples here, but note that the relationship you are looking to express should be apparent right away. Charts. Charts are very important for illustrating data and supporting your key messages. However, there are a number of critical pieces required for every chart. 1. Add a title either above or in the chart. 2. Include labels for the data series. 3. Format axis labels. 4. Indicate axis units. 5. Include sources even if you only clarify that sources are internal. 6. In-chart emphasis is usually a welcome enhancement. 7. Double check that all font sizes are legible. 8. It usually looks neat to add a border around the chart in PowerPoint. In addition, 2 other issues are critical to keep in mind when conceptualizing a chart. 1. Choose an observation period for the x-axis and scale for the y-axis that suits your dataset and the story you want to tell. If you need to show an outlier, you can add an extension graphic rather than skewing the entire chart. 2. Limit the information shown on one chart so a reader knows immediately what you're trying to express. You're most likely better off creating 2 charts than cramming multiple variables into one chart. Pasting model outputs. You will very frequently need to paste model outputs into a presentation. This should always be done by pasting model outputs as images using the enhanced meta file format under the Paste Special command. You can call up this command by pressing Ctrl-Alt-V. This means you will need to spend some time formatting the table in Excel before pasting it into PowerPoint. It's important to note that you can format a table in Excel to look almost exactly like a native PowerPoint table. Also note that pasting model outputs as images saves a lot of time because you don't need to reformat the table. In addition, it ensures that all the numbers in the table are consistent with the numbers calculated in Excel. This is not guaranteed if you manually update individual numbers in a PowerPoint table. This becomes particularly important when you need to frequently update multiple model scenarios and paste outputs into a presentation. Graphics. This section focuses on basic formatting of portraits, pictures, logos, and tombstones. Portraits. You may occasionally need to put together headshots for team or management profiles. Some suggestions to keep in mind. Avoid excessive white space above the head of the person. Size each person in similar proportions. Avoid stretching out faces horizontally for obvious reasons. A frame usually looks more formal for PowerPoint. This is less critical but nice to have. Try to use light backgrounds and similar color tone if possible. Logos. Not much to say here, but try to crop them to similar sizes and use consistent backgrounds to the extent possible. If available, download GIF or PNG files with transparent backgrounds. Pictures. This goes in the nice-to-have category, but it's usually more aesthetically pleasing to increase the contrast along with an increase in brightness and even adjust the color tone and saturation if the discrepancy between pictures is very strong. Tombstones. Although tombstones take up a lot of space while providing limited informative value, they leave a good impression. Make sure each tombstone uses the exact same text positioning as the one next to it and is spaced out and aligned perfectly.
Styling. Here are a few basic ideas to style a slide. 1. Add a simple flowchart. 2. Bold some section headings and keywords. 3. Use italics to distinguish specific elements. 4. Use all caps to emphasize headings. 5. Font coloring for emphasis. 6. Pointing arrows are extremely helpful visual aids. 7. Color shading to group related items. And lastly, 8. Dotted borders to further call out specific items.
Coloring. The next topic briefly touches on the use of consistent color schemes. In general, avoid using too many different shades, as this will start looking messy. Instead, to the extent possible, keep shades in a similar color family. That way, you can pick out one distinct bright color to emphasize key points. Red provides the strongest emphasis, but sometimes looks like someone marked up a mistake for a correction, so orange is usually a good alternative. Bullets. Here are some suggestions for using bullets. For regular bullets, you might want to use a colored square or circle as your first level bullet, and a dash for your second level indent to distinguish between the two. Adding third level indents starts making a pitch book look more like an outline, but you could use dashes if you need to. Alternatively, you can insert section headings within a list to avoid additional indents. In an effort to categorize a list of bullets, you may also want to take advantage of check marks and X's or plus and minus signs to quickly signal pros and cons of a topic.
Harvey balls. Harvey balls provide a very efficient way of making a comparison and are often used to emphasize why your team is the best. Another way of drawing the same comparison is to put number of stars, plus signs, or check marks.
Margins and spacings. To ensure a presentation looks neat, you should always use margins and appropriate spacing on the side of the slides, between text and table borders, between bullets and text, between lines, and between paragraphs.
Guides. You should get in the habit of using guides to ensure consistent alignment. You can turn guides on and off by right-clicking on the screen and selecting Grids and Guides, then clicking off the option, Display Drawing Guides on Screen. Alternatively, you can hit Alt F9. You should use guides to align left and right slide margins, align the top slide margin, align other objects within a slide. Note that guides can make it difficult to proofread, so you might want to turn them off when you are not focusing on alignment.
Short form text. There are a few things you can do to reduce clutter without removing content. One is using short form text. Though it may feel grammatically incomplete, it's usually fine to use short form within tables and bullets meaning you can drop articles like the or a to save space. 2. Left and right margins. You can decrease the margins to the table border. In particular, you can set the right margin to almost 0, since it's very rare that sentences will expand all the way to the right border. 3. Round brackets. Often you can replace entire phrases with 2 to 3 words in brackets, which are self-explanatory based on context. 4. Numericals. Although this is against grammar conventions, you can use actual number symbols rather than writing them out as words. And lastly, fitting sentences to one line, which significantly reduces clutter, allows for greater font size, page margins, and increased focus on just the key takeaways. Decimals. Here we make just a few comments on decimals and unit labels. For paragraphs, it is usually sufficient to focus on 3 significant digits and 1 to 2 decimal places. This means you may need to use abbreviations such as BN for billion, M for million, and K for thousands. But it tends to be easier to read something as 1.25 billion rather than 1,250 million. For tables, the following guidelines help keep things neat. 1. Show only as many decimals as are truly informative, but in any case be consistent. 2. Pick a base unit that limits the number of total digits while minimizing the use of decimals. In this case, we used millions of dollars as a base unit to avoid having to show decimals for dollar values. 3. Put brackets around negative values. 4. Use a comma to separate every thousand.
The last topic in this section concerns slide titles. There are obviously a number of variations, but here are some ideas for how to deal with a few common situations. The first screenshot is just a regular heading. The second shot shows a sample layout for a subheading. The remaining shots shows 3 alternatives showing multiple slides belonging together.